This video is sponsored by Classic Football Shirts, the best place to get your classic and vintage football shirts. To get cheap retro Palace shirts, click the link in the description below. And for an extra 10% off, use the code CFSPJ10 at checkout. Hello and welcome to the Equals for Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook, and in today's podcast I'll be looking over Palace's pre-season and we'll be discussing the results, lineups and performances. As well as this, I'll be discussing the formations and how this could see us set up in the coming season. All this along with bringing you player interviews, so let's begin. Once again, I'd just like to say hello and welcome back to the first Equals for Palace podcast of the new season. And today, like I've done in the past few seasons, I'm going to start off talking about pre-season, and then podcast 2 will be me just discussing a few of the new transfers and of course some other new deals around that as well. So what I'm going to do in this podcast, how it's really going to work, is I'm just going to go through each of our first team pre-season games individually, and like I said in the introduction, I'll be discussing the results, the performances, the lineups as well, and obviously just pointing out a few things we learned from the game, whether that be how the formation could see us play next season, or whether there was a few players that really did shine out and sort of I could pick out from their performances. And obviously after that I'll give you an interview from a player after the game, just to give you their sort of perspective, not just on the game but their pre-season preparations, and that obviously just gives you an idea of how ready the players think they are for the new season. Now of course I've already said I'm only going to be doing the 5 first team pre-season games, so I haven't included the Palace 11 games because most of them did include mostly under 23 players. So realistically, unless we have loads of injuries or unless we get another Wan-Bissaka who comes into the first team, we're not likely to see many of these players this season. Maybe in the future, you know, there's a few good players in sort of the under 23s, you know, your Lakilos, your Dailies. You know, there's a few good players there, but realistically, unless we have a situation where one of them comes through or we have loads of injuries, we're not going to see them maybe for another few seasons or so. So that's why I'm not really going to talk too much about the Palace 11 games. But if I want to say something about these 11 games, the majority of them were played on Tuesday nights. So basically, whoever didn't play from the first team on the Saturday pre-season friendly game would play on the Tuesday night, and then obviously, so that was basically the bench, so you've got 7 players or so, and then the rest of the team was made up of under 23 players. So people like Alexander Sorloth, Johnny Williams, Solly Kaikai, Joe Ward, Martin Kelly, these players were always involved in the Palace 11 games because they were on the bench at the weekend. And obviously I'm not really going to talk too much about these games realistically because it was basically a reserve friendly with majority under 23 players. But it's got to say, actually I think that's a really great system, rather than just having pre-season friendlies for the first team where some people may not get to feature because obviously not everyone can always come off the bench. It's good that they had a second one midweek where those who didn't feature get to have a go, and obviously players from the under 23s get to have a go with the first team players as well. So that was of course great to see as well. So I might as well start with the first game, obviously our Scandinavian pre-season tour. Obviously Roy Hodgson going back to where the area where he began his managerial career. But FC Helsingør, I believe it's how you pronounce it, it finished 2-2. You know, we obviously conceded first, we came back into the game, they scored again, we brought it back when we brought our reinforcements on. So realistically, first game of pre-season, this team were already halfway through their season, I believe it was. So realistically, they're going to be a bit more fitter than us, and it did show in the game. But once again, it's still a good result, and if you listen to what the players and what the manager said after the game, this game was primarily just about getting fitness up and ready, and certainly we did see that in the game where it was a bit lacklustre at times, but still there were a few glimpses of certain players who did impress quite a lot. So like I said, it finished 2-2. The lineup was Gaeta, Wan-Bissaka, Kelly, Yak, Soare, Kirby, Puncheon, Riedewald, Slop, Kaikai and Sorloth. Now obviously for me, and obviously most people can see, that's probably a second 11, bar maybe someone like Wan-Bissaka, Gaeta, who would probably be in the first team. But obviously this was the first pre-season game, so you've got to put them in there to get a bit more experience. But in terms of this lineup, I was quite impressed with it. I was quite happy with it, because the whole point of pre-season is seeing how new systems work, seeing how players who haven't necessarily played that much can play together. And certainly we saw that in this game, and in particular someone like Kai and even Sorloth as well, who got the goal. These are two players in particular who I was excited to see before the game, and they certainly did impress me in the game, with Kai with his crossing, with his skill, his flicks and stuff, and obviously Sorloth grabbing the goal as well. So once again, this is a lineup that I was quite excited to see, because it's something we haven't seen before. It's got some of the fringe players in there, and certainly obviously the results not great, because you haven't won the game considering all of the quality we've got, Premier League quality. But when you consider the other teams halfway through their season, and of course Palace are playing their fringe side, I think it's a good game. And like I've already said, pre-season is primarily about getting the fitness up ready for the new season. Now in terms of the starting 11, only Nia Kirby played the full 90 minutes, which considering he's 18-year-old is really impressive. Ultimately he had to leave the tour to go and play for England. I can't remember if it was one of their qualifiers or not. So obviously that was a bit disappointing, because he looked really, really good in this game. But certainly it is quite impressive that out of a team of 11, or the starting 11, he was the only player who didn't go off. Now in terms of the sub bench, so we had Julian Speroni, Joe Ward, Patrick Van Aanholt, James Tompkins, Mamadou Sakho, James McArthur, Wilfried Zaha, Jason Nikila and Christian Benteke. So once again, like I said, the starting 11 was mainly sort of your fringe players, and obviously the bench was where the stronger players were. And certainly when all of these players came off the bench, we did see sort of an upturn in the quality of the game, and that's obviously how Palace came back into the game. Now of course the intensity wasn't great, but like I've said, it was primarily about building up fitness. So in terms of just a few points about the game, obviously the goals came from Alexander Sorloth and Mamadou Sakho. Douglas scored in the 5th minute for Helsingør, and obviously James Tompkins' own goal towards the end of the game obviously got Helsingør back into it. Obviously that's not great to score an own goal, but I personally think, looking back at it, it was quite unlucky. And like I said again, the results don't necessarily matter. It's all about gaining that fitness up and getting ready for the new season. And certainly we did do that, because as we've seen, or as I've seen quite a lot of people say, the way the pre-season friendlies worked is that they got harder as they went on. So we started with an easier one, they got harder each time. So it was great to start on this game, very competitive in the fact that it finished with a draw, and once again a great way to build up the fitness ahead of the new season. Now obviously one of the most important things I suppose we can look at this game is the fact that Nia Kirby played the 90 minutes, and he was the only player to do that. So if I had to pick out one point from this game to take into the new season, it's the fact that Nia Kirby impressed, which was obviously great to see, but also the fact that he can play the full 90 minutes in the first team quality game. Yes, he did look a bit lethargic, let's say, towards the end of the game, but the fact that he can play to such high intensity with the first team, and actually bond so well with the likes of Kai Sorloth, playing that attacking role, as well as someone like Reid Walden Punchin, who he was playing aside. The fact that he can bond well with them and play really well whilst playing the full 90 minutes was also quite impressive as well. So FC Helsingør 2, Crystal Palace 2, a great start to the pre-season game, not necessarily because of the result, but obviously the fitness that came with it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give you one of the first interviews from pre-season, and that is with the youth player Nia Kirby.
No, full 90 minutes today. How was it out there?
It's a great experience. Always good to play with the first team and play against such a good team as well. But it was hard work, and I think it was good for fitness and to get underneath my belt.
It was a fast-paced game, wasn't it? Was it faster than you thought it might have been?
Yeah, definitely. Compared to the 23s, the tempo definitely steps up. So I just had to step up myself.
There was a bit of a lift when all the substitutions came on in the second half. Wilf makes a difference, doesn't he, with his pace?
Yeah, no, definitely. He's a quality player, and you could rely on him more. So you could give him the ball, and then he will definitely make something happen with it.
And in the centre of midfield, obviously in these stadiums you can hear what's being shouted on the pitch a lot more. James McArthur, very vocal, very, very supportive of you. Is he a really good person to play alongside?
Yeah, definitely. He'll talk you through the whole game, and just by watching him, it will just make you a better player.
You've been away obviously on pre-season before. How's this one been this week?
It's been good. It's been good. A little bit different weather-wise compared to Hong Kong to here, so it's better for me in that case. But no, it's been brilliant.
And how are you feeling fitness-wise? At your age, I guess you can run and run anyway, can't you?
They say that, but I still have to keep up my fitness. But I'm training hard and working with Rory to get my fitness up, so it's going good.
And for these games, approaching them, obviously, it's about fitness, it's about getting minutes under your belt, but you've all got that inbuilt desire to win a game, haven't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a disappointing result, but as you said, today was mainly about the fitness and just getting back into playing 11-a-side football. So, no, it was good.
I know this time we played for England again. Tell us how that went.
Yeah, in China it was good. We came second, so no, it was a good tournament. I scored 2 goals as well, so no, it was pleasing.
And the World Cup, you've been watching much of the action there?
Yeah, it's a disappointing to lose in the semis, but it happens, and I'm still proud of the England team, and hopefully could go again in the next World Cup.
And that camaraderie you see in the England team, is that something that goes down through all the different age groups there?
Yeah, definitely. We'll try and play the same style and try and win is the main goal. But by playing that sort of style, and it does definitely help, and I think it's more crowd pleasing as well by playing that style.
Cool. Thanks, Nye.
Cheers, thank you.
So now I'm going to move on to the second game of the pre-season, and once again this was on the Scandinavian tour, and that was against Halmstad, which finished Halmstad 1, Crystal Palace 6. So as you can see by the result there, I said that the games got progressively harder, and once again this was a team who are midway through their season, but the fact that Palace were able to improve from their performance a few days before was obviously great to see as well. And the fact that we scored so many goals, and the fact that it wasn't just one player scoring the goals, shows that overall as a team we've got players across the field who can score goals and contribute to the team. So just to go through the lineup from the game, so this is obviously the starting 11. Wayne Hennessy, Patrick Van Aanholt, James Tompkins, Mamadou Sakho, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Jeffrey Slupp, J.R. Riedewald, James McArthur, Andros Townsend, Alexander Sorloth and Christian Benteke. So as you see, if you had to compare it from the first game, obviously we drew that 2-2. Coming into this game, we started the game with our strongest 11. Ultimately, because someone like Luka Milivojevic was still on his holiday after the World Cup, obviously this was the strongest 11 we could put out, and the performance really does show that. In the first game, a few fringe players, we drew the game, you can understand that. But when we play our full strength 11, or what is available as our full strength 11, we obviously can put in a fantastic performance like this. Now obviously this was our last game on our Scandinavian pre-season tour. It's a great way to finish it. Obviously Roy Hodgson said himself that obviously results are great, but the fact that he was able to go to Scandinavia, the fact that the climate there was good for pre-season training, the fact that all of the players were working hard, getting ready for the new season, obviously that was a positive to take. And obviously the results, the draw and the win obviously just add to that. And obviously that day it was quite a hot evening in Sweden, obviously where the game was being played. So ultimately it's great for the players to experience different climates, which ultimately will get them ready for the new season. And obviously Van Aanholt was probably one of our main threats in the game. He scored the brace within 2 minutes of each other. Obviously Benteke started the game. Yes, he went off injured, but he scored first. Fantastic goal, picking up the ball on the edge of the area, spinning past the defender, putting it into the far corner. He went off injured slightly after that, but then Van Aanholt popped up on the edge of the area. Bang! Fantastic shot with his left foot. I believe it was into the far right corner. Then again, 2 minutes later, cut inside again, this time with his right foot, so using both feet to put it in exactly the same far corner again. So that was great to see. Obviously Halmstad did score first, but obviously like I've said, Benteke went on to score again, and obviously Van Aanholt scored them 2 goals. And of course then Sally Kaikai went forth and scored the goal just before half time. So it was 4-1 at half time. Obviously a great performance all round, and like I've said, it was great to see not the same sort of players scoring the goals. We've got Christian Benteke, obviously your striker, you want to score goals. You've got your left back in Van Aanholt, contributing 2 goals as well. And obviously you've got Sully Kaikai as well, who's been brilliant in pre-season, coming in, and actually his goal was fantastic in terms of picking up the ball, having a shot from outside the box. So once again, it's great to see other players getting involved and not necessarily us relying on one player in particular to score all of our goals for us. And obviously after half time we brought on a few substitutions, and obviously that sort of changed the game. James McArthur scored an absolute screamer from the edge of the box. Obviously got past the ball to him, literally took a touch, killed the ball dead, and just absolutely hammered it into the top corner. Great finish there. And of course, obviously Jason Punchin came off the bench, and within 30 seconds of being on the pitch, ball got crossed into the area, and obviously Punchin just hammered it home, obviously making the game finish 6-1. So ultimately, like I've said already, a good end to that Scandinavian tour as part of the pre-season friendly. or the pre-season friendlies. And of course, like Roy Hodgson said, yes, the results are great in the fact that we've put in good performances and we've got loads of goals, but the main thing for him really was just building up that fitness, and certainly that's something we saw here. We started to see the formation take shape, which is of course great going into the new season. But like I said, the main thing is about fitness. But if I am looking at this team, you're looking at it going, yes, this is probably our strongest 11. You could argue when Luka comes back from the World Cup, which he has now, but let's pretend that I'm talking about the pre-season friendly as it's just happened. Obviously, someone like Jar Reedwald or MacArthur would come out, Luka would go in there, and of course, someone like Alexander Sorloth would go to the bench, and Wilfried Zaha would come back in there. So that just shows you that actually it is our strongest 11, but there are a few positions which could be changed. And ultimately, that's what you want to see in pre-season. You don't just want to see loads of goals, loads of good performances, but you want to see how the actual team, which probably is going to start the season, you want to see how they played. And certainly this was a great exhibit in terms of how we think they're going to play this season. Because it's always great to see loads of youth players get chances, but the main thing for me personally looking at it is I'd rather see the team we're going to play against Fulham at the weekend, and I'd rather see how they play together, just so we can get an idea of how prepared they are for the new season, and obviously what we can expect from them this season. And I think I was quite impressed. The 4-4-2 formation seems to be working really well, and people say it's quite boring, quite sort of generic, but actually it's a very fluid formation. We've got great attacks from the wing backs, or not wing backs, the full backs, but obviously they go quite high up the pitch, which means the wide midfielders, if you want to call them that, because they're not necessarily wingers, so the wide midfielders drift inside as well to give support, and obviously the two strikers up front, one playing off each other. That sort of formation's really fluid, seems to be working really well, and hopefully we can sort of move that form in pre-season, how the system's been working really great, and hopefully sort of translate that into the new season, which I think we can, because it's looked good. And I'm certainly think that Roy Hodgson is the man with the experience he's got to sort of translate that pre-season form and that sort of formation, that shape, the way we're playing, and hopefully transition that into, not just against Fulham, but for the season ahead as a whole. And we have seen glimpses of sort of the formation changing from a 4-4-2, 4-4-3-3, which once again shows how fluid and how free-flowing the formation is, in the fact that we can change positions really well. But once again here, Halmstad 1, Crystal Palace 6, a good end to that Scandinavian part of pre-season. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give you interviews with Sally Kaikai and the brace scorer, Patrick Vanano.
Hello, with respect to the manager, he was delighted with your performance this evening. You must be pleased yourself.
Yeah, I'm really pleased. It's been a good pre-season so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I feel good, and just trying to make an impression.
Well, certainly made an impression with that goal. Up there with one of your best for Palace?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, definitely for the first team. I've scored a few crackers for like the 18s and 21s, but yeah, definitely I'll say that's my best goal for the first team.
Now, you wanted to take the free kick at one point, didn't you? Do you reckon you're going to get one next time?
Yeah, I had one last game, and it wasn't great, so Pat said he'll take this one, and since he missed, I'll be in the next one, so yeah.
And you've been playing in a front two in this system. How have you been enjoying that role?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I have more or should I say a free role to kind of get on the ball and make runs, and it's benefited my game.
Are you surprised with the reaction the manager got at the start of the game?
No, not really. I know that he's a legend in Sweden, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, how much have you enjoyed being in the country?
It's been good. It's been a good trip. Where we're staying is quite quiet, peaceful. So yeah, it's been nice, and to get the win today, top it off, it's been a great trip.
And for you, looking ahead to the rest of the pre-season, what's it all about for you?
I think just getting my head down, trying to impress the manager even more, taking on board what the staff are saying to me, and then just see where that takes me.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Cheers. First of all, the scoreline was a great way to end the tour here, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, obviously it's pre-season, so it's all about fitness. It's not about games. It's all about games and getting the fitness in. But it's good to win 6-1, and good to score 2 goals.
Yeah, which one was your favourite?
I don't know. They both ended nice on the same corner, so left and right, it doesn't matter. But yeah, like I said, it's about fitness, and I'm happy to play 65 minutes today. I wanted to play more, but Kaffa said it's only the second game, so yeah, you move on to the next one now.
Seen you score a few in training as well this week. You must be pleased that you're carrying on. It seems like you're carrying on your form from last season already into pre-season. Yeah,
it's all about that. It's all about carry on. Like I picked up, like I finished last season. obviously I had a holiday, and yeah, the battery is charged now, and it's time to go again. And yeah, I'm ready.
And the way Roy plays with the slightly narrow midfielders, that allows you to get forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what he wants. He wants wingers, midfielders to tuck in tight, so the fullbacks got the space to go in behind. And it's my strength, you know. I've been doing it since I've been here, so we all know that that's my strongest thing. So keep doing it.
And finally, you saw the reaction the manager got at the start of the game. You're surprised with how much of a hero he is in Sweden.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that, you know. And he speaks Swedish as well, so I was very surprised, to be fair. But yeah, like you said, he's a big hero here, and he's a big hero at Palace as well. So.
And overall, just happy with the way the past week's gone?
Yeah, I'm happy, you know. We had great time here, great training sessions, hard sessions, 2 good games, and yeah, we finished off with a nice win.
So I'm now going to move on to the third game of pre-season, and once again this was back in England. Obviously Palace came back from Scandinavia, and obviously the next weekend went on to play their first of their 3 games in England. Now obviously the first one in England and the third one of pre-season was against Oxford United. It finished Oxford United 1, Crystal Palace 3, so once again another win, keeping us unbeaten up until this point. And in terms of the starting 11, once again it was similar to the game, you know, back in Scandinavia, the second one, in terms of it was our strongest 11, giving us an idea of what we can expect going into the season. So once again, Hennessy in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Tompkins, Sacco, Van Aanholt, Townsend, MacArthur, Riedewald, Slup, Zaha, Sorloth. So obviously once again, that sort of lineup just gives you an idea of what we can expect going into the season. And like I've said already, you can probably expect Riedewald maybe to come out and someone like Luka Milivojevic to come back in, and of course Sorloth to go out, and maybe someone like Benteke to come back in. But once again, like I've said, this is sort of the base of what we can expect going forward this season. Now in terms of the substitutions, you know, Guaita came on for Hennessy at half time, Ward came on in the 64th minute for Wan-Bissaka, Punching came on for James MacArthur in the 82nd minute, Johnny Williams came on for Slup in the 82nd minute, and of course Solu Kaiko came on for Sorloth in the 64th minute. So once again, these are basically the sort of substitutions you can expect from Palace going forward. Certainly someone like Kaiko, who I think will be given a chance this season. Certainly someone like Johnny Williams possibly could be given a chance. So once again, that just gives you an idea of what we can bring off the bench. And in terms of the goalkeeping sort of substitution, it just obviously is just to make sure that all of the goalkeepers get enough game time. Personally for me, I think the fact that Hennessy got injured in one of the games that I'm going to talk about in a minute is obviously going to probably be Guaita if it isn't that serious of an if it is a serious injury, or he's not that serious but he's going to be out for a few days or so. Obviously Guaita will start the game, but I still think there's a slight language barrier there, so maybe give him a few more weeks just to learn a bit more English, then he can probably play in the Carabao Cup and that way get experience that way, and then maybe replace Hennessy. But I think at this point, I think Hennessy, the fact that he played so well last season, doesn't really deserve to be dropped, and the fact that he's already got that sort of chemistry and that communication with the back four, I think it would be good for him to start. But I do certainly think, like I've said, in one of the games going forward, I'll go and talk about Guaita, but I still do think they're going to be pushing each other really, really hard this season for that first team spot, because both have looked decent in pre-season, but I personally think at the current time, given the language barrier and given the fact that they, you know, Hennessy played so well last season, there's no reason for him to be dropped, so I see him starting. But certainly Guaita, if he does keep performing and obviously he gets rid of that language barrier, I certainly could see him starting above him. Now once again, much what was the common theme in all of our pre-season games, we haven't yet kept a clean sheet up until this point, and this was another game here where we conceded first, but we went on to lose, to go on and win the game. Obviously Oxford United losing this one 3-1. But once again, we conceded first. It was a bit of sloppy defending. You know, Wayne Hennessy went to come out, sort of put his arms in the air, tried to make himself big, but the striker just literally whipped the ball around him. 1-0 at that point. Luckily for us, you know, we obviously realised we're losing, put on a bit of pressure, and actually performed to our full intensity, which you would expect in the Premier League matches. And certainly, as soon as they'd done that, the whole performance improved, and obviously we just sort of managed to sort of get control of Oxford United. And once again, you know, much like many games this season or last season in particular, we sort of took some time to get into games. This was certainly the case here. You know, your 2 points are the fact that we took quite a lot of time to grow into the game, but also the fact that when we increased the intensity, we became better. So once again, showing that that's one of the things that's good about pre-season. You can pick out a few things which aren't great. Certainly starting the game quite slowly and the sloppy defending isn't that great, but the fact that we learnt from that and just increased the intensity and just managed to take a bigger sort of foothold in the game, that was of course great to see as well. Now of course we were 1-0 down, midway through the second half. Obviously Zaha drew us level just before half time, a great ball. I believe it was either from Sorloth or Andros Townsend out wide. Some may say it was offside, it's a bit debatable, but let's just say fantastic finish, another step over to get past the defender, rifles it into the top of the net. Great goal, and obviously it's good to score a goal just before half time. Obviously in the second half, we obviously won the game 3-1 in the end, so 2 goals in that second half period. Jeffrey Slupp getting the first one, which was basically a tap in from a few yards out. I believe Andros Townsend whipped the ball in the area. Zaha tried to have a shot, it was blocked by the goalkeeper. The ball fell to Slupp, literally 2 yards out. He hammered it home, making it 2-1. So obviously, once again, not the most fantastic goal, but the fact that he's able to position himself in a position where if a ball does fly out in the box, he can get on the end of it. That's obviously great to see as well. And obviously the quick reactions to be the first player to actually get on the ball and rifle it into the net. That's of course great to see as well. And obviously Salu Kaikat again, he was absolutely fantastic in Scandinavia. Once again, getting another goal here. Great, I believe it was Wilfried Zaha, cut to the byline, whipped the ball into the box. It may even have been Andros Townsend. There were so many balls coming into the box. I think it was Townsend. Whipped the ball into the box, rifled it sort of across the area, just outside the edge of the box. Kaikai's hit it, very powerful shot into that far corner. Fantastic goal to see as well. And once again, I have to highlight, Kaikai is one of these players for me who did stand out in pre-season, purely based on the fact that he obviously was contributing goals, but also just his overall attacking play really did impress me. But that goal in particular, obviously the one in Scandinavia was great, but this one was even better in the fact that the build-up play was good. Obviously the cutback was great as well from Townsend, but the finish as well to rifle it into that far corner was of course great to see as well. But once again, like I've said with the games in Scandinavia, especially the second one, this was obviously a great game just to see Palace improve their fitness even more. Obviously there were 2 games after this, so you're not necessarily going to expect the team to be at a full intensity, but certainly we did see glimpses in this game where, like I've said, each of the pre-season friendlies got progressively harder, and certainly that's what we saw here. We saw the performances getting better and better as the game went on, and of course that's great to see. Now just to go back to the point I made about looking at the formation and looking how we're playing in terms of the new season coming ahead, once again this was a game where you fully expect the players who started this game to be starting in the Premier League season. So you expect the back four, Wan-Bissaka, Tompkins, Sacco, Van Aanholt, that they looked pretty solid in this game once they grew into it. So of course you can expect that to be a solid back four in the Premier League season. Obviously, when Luca comes back in, he'll probably play in midfield with Townsend, maybe someone like McCarthy as well, and maybe Jeffrey Slupp as well, who I predict to start. And obviously up front, you bring Benteke in for Sorloth, and you've obviously got that partnership of Zaha and Benteke up front. So once again, this game did really show us actually the basis of what we can expect from the team formation wise, and obviously the general sort of fluid play as well, what we can expect in the coming season. So I'm now going to give you the third, or it may even be, the fourth interview from a Palace player, and that is from Jeffrey Slupp following his goal.
Goal for you today, nice 3-1 victory. How was it out there?
Yeah, definitely wasn't an easy game, thought we started really well, but could have finished off the half a bit better, but came back out and got the job done, and obviously got the fitness in there as well.
So a physical game, but is it good in pre-season to have competitive fixtures like this?
Yeah, definitely. You want to get the competitive games in as soon as possible, and we definitely had a tough one today. Whether we made it tough for ourselves or not, you got to give credit to the opposition. Of course, they made it hard for us, but we come through the test with another good win.
Played in midfield quite a lot under Roy. Are you enjoying playing that position?
Yeah, definitely. I've always said I'd play anywhere he needed me to, and he's using me in midfield, and I feel really comfortable there.
How is it playing with Wilfried as a striker in front? You seem to have quite a good link-up play with him. Yeah,
I think whenever we've played together, me, Wilf, and Patrick behind, I think the link-up has been good, and we work at it in training as well. And obviously, if that happens to be the left side coming into the first game of the season, we're more than ready, and the connection's already there. So happy days.
Training in Sweden was a lot about fitness. How's it changed this week since you've been back?
Yeah, still more so, but obviously now we're back from Sweden. We've got quite a few games coming up, so obviously fitness is a big side of it, but obviously getting in the games in as soon as possible is obviously the main thing. You know, you can do as much running as you want, but there's no such thing equal to match fitness. So obviously you want to get in as many games as possible.
So now to move on to Palace's penultimate pre-season game, and once again this was one of the ones that Palace played once coming back from Scandinavia back in England, and that was of course against Reading. And if you've been living under a rock, it did finish Reading 0, Crystal Palace 4. Now once again, like I said with all of the other pre-season friendlies, you know, they were building up in terms of difficulty, and certainly with this one being a second to last, it certainly was up there as meant to be one of our toughest opponents. But realistically, a 4-0 win, Reading weren't necessarily as good as we thought they were, and Palace were actually better. So I think it's a mixture of Reading weren't playing that great, but I also do think Palace were just playing them off the ballpark as well. Now in terms of the lineup from the game, once again this is realistically what I'd expect Palace to go into the season with. So Hennessy in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Tompkins, Sacco, Van Aanholt, Townsend, MacArthur, Riedewald, Slop, Zaha and Sorloth. So once again this is basically a lineup you could expect to see on the starting day against Fulham, but like I've already said today already and earlier on in the podcast, a few of these players, i.e. maybe Slop, might be changed with MacArthur, and obviously Luka Milivojevic will play MacArthur's role. Someone like Benteke will come in from Sorloth. So there are a few changes we can expect from this lineup, but I certainly do see that actually the formation and the shape we've got inside will be the same for the season, and especially when we start against Fulham, but it will just be a few players and a few tweaks here and there, which of course is how we'll start the season. Now in terms of the subs, Punchin came on the 82nd minute for Townsend, William also came on the 82nd, Milivojevic came on at half time for Riedewald, and of course Connor Wickham came on after that long injury in the 72nd minute for Sorloth. So once again, these are the sort of substitutions that, in terms of Milivojevic, he'll probably start the the Premier League season, obviously having not really played that much in pre-season, but he'll start, given the fact that he's one of our key players and it's great that he's come back from the World Cup. But also people like Punchin, Williams, even Wickham to a certain extent, these are the sort of fringe players in the squad, and you know, they may not necessarily always come off the bench, but certainly they do provide us with a little bit of squad depth, albeit the likes of William and Wickham always seem to be injured. Now of course there are a few subs not used from the game, you know, Gaeta, Ward, Suarez, Kelly, Kai. Basically, my thinking is that Roy Hodgson, as it was one of the closest of the pre-season games to the start of the season, he basically wanted to make it as realistic as possible in terms of the season ahead. So rather than making loads of changes and changing the squad completely, I think he's trying to make less substitutions to basically get Palace ready for the new season. So rather than all of the players going off, he basically wants to make it as realistic as possible to, you know, sort of basically give the players who are going to start the Premier League season, just give them an idea and give them, just give them a chance to play and sort of continue the form from last season. Now of course the opening 45 minutes, obviously the game did finish 4-0, but actually the opening 45 minutes were quite boring. Obviously Alexander Sorloth opened the scoring, great ball from Wilf, you know, running to the byline and cutting the ball across. Powerful shot from Alexander Sorloth, and that was, I think, on about 33 minutes. And of course, in the second half, we upped our gears even more, and that's the thing, once again, just going back to the substitutions. Rather than making loads of substitutions and just changing the system, let the team who will most likely play the Premier League season just play out another game so they can get ready for the new season. And because of that, it meant that second half, all guns blazing, and you know, our quality did shone through, and we ended up scoring the 3 other goals to make it 4-0. Now, of course, Wilfried Zaha scored twice. You know, he's been fantastic this pre-season, you know, scoring loads of goals here and there. And, of course, it's great to see him continuing in his form from last season. And, of course, James Tompkins as well. We know he's a threat from corners, but this one, the goal came just after a corner. He stayed up for the corner and obviously headed the ball in. So, once again shown, like I've said with the Scandinavian games, we haven't just got one player or two players scoring. We've got players from across the field playing, whether that be a midfielder, a left back, your striker obviously want to score, whether you're a defender as well, we've got players from all around the field scoring, which is of course great to see. But just to go through the 4 goals individually, with it being Palace's highest scoring game, and once again I must mention our first clean sheet, which is of course a great thing to show, you know, and see the fact that our back 4, who's most likely going to start the Premier League season, they kept a clean sheet against good opposition, who ultimately weren't good on the day, but they're good opposition, Reading. That was of course great to see. So once again, the first goal, like I've already mentioned, great cut back from Wilfried Zaha, ran into the box, cut the ball back for Sorloth, fantastic finish from Sorloth, lovely powerful shot, almost broke the net, it was that powerful, and of course great accuracy to get it away from the goalkeeper into the top corner. Obviously the second goal, once again Wilfried Zaha scored the goal. Great link-up play between Van Aanholt and Zaha on that left-hand side. Van Aanholt plays Zaha in, composed finish from Zaha, and obviously considering it was a tight angle where he was coming in from that left-hand side, he was able to put it into the net, which was quite great to see. And if you do want to see a video of that goal from the fans' perspective in the stands, then of course do click on the video on our channel, and of course you can just experience the game from the fans' perspective. And certainly I must say it is a must watch for any people who want to get a feel for the atmosphere at the pre-season game, and if you want to see the goals, because you know, I think a few of the fans who, you know, handed in the clips to me, I think, you know, it was quite good that they were able to capture the goals as well. And once again, like I said, it is a really good goal to watch, so I would recommend you do that. Of course, the third goal, absolutely class goal. Once again, Wilfried Zaha just doing what he'd done all last season. Picks up the ball on the edge of the area, gets past a few players and just slaps it into the goal from just outside the box, or maybe it was just inside. It was sort of on the edge of the box almost. He's just literally just hammered it into the goal. Fantastic goal, fantastic shot, fantastic goal. And of course he went forth to celebrate with the fans, because, well, like I've said, it was an absolutely fantastic goal to see. And certainly looking back at the game, the goal just seems to get better and better the more you watch it. And like I've said, do go back and look at that fans view video, because it just gives you an idea of the carnage in the away end. Even though it's pre-season, the fact that we've just seen a goal as good as that was of course great to see as well. But also just to see what how the fans saw the goal as well, it's of course great to see as well. And of course that was 3-0. The fourth goal obviously scored from James Tompkins. I believe it was either a free kick or a corner that Palace had, but we whipped the ball into the area, obviously got cleared out, and I believe it was someone like Andros Townsend picked up the ball on the right hand side, done a lovely sprint forward past a few defenders, whipped the ball in, and because James Tompkins hadn't left the box from that set piece opportunity, he literally just headed it past the goalkeeper. Really easy finish for him to make. And of course that was the last goal, making the game end 4-0. But once again, I was really impressed with this game, not just because of the scoreline, but just the fact how free-flowing the football we were playing. And that's the thing, you know, when Roy Hodgson first joined the club, obviously we all know what he's done last season, but when he first came, people were like, you're going to play boring football, it's going to be all long ball, it's going to be your 4-4-2, really boring. But actually what we've seen in pre-season, and obviously last season as well, but especially this pre-season, we're seeing how free-flowing the football is, how good it's looking, how, you know, how much intricacy there is, and how the players are moving with each other, and how everything's working together. It all looks fantastic, and certainly is giving all of the fans a very positive outlook on the season. Obviously, we know Roy Hodgson's a good manager, so we're ultimately, after what we've done last season, we're going to have a positive outlook on the season. But just the way we've been playing and blowing teams away in pre-season, albeit not Premier League quality, but the fact that we've been able to play them and do as well as we did, you know, scoring loads of goals, being pretty solid defensively, as well as playing this attractive style of football, is of course great to see as well. But like I've said here, Reading 0, Crystal Palace 4. So I'm now going to move on to the player interviews from this game against Reading, starting with Wilfried Zaha and followed up with Jara Riedewald.
Wilfried, that was one of the most entertaining pre-season friendlies I've ever seen, I think. What was it like to play in?
It was good, man. Obviously we're getting back into shape, and obviously you can see on the pitch that everything's working again, so hopefully we can start how we ended last season.
Assist and 2 goals for you. Let's talk about the first one, the assist for Alexander. You enjoyed playing up front with him at the moment?
Yeah, he's strong. We're starting to, obviously I haven't played with him much, but we're starting to understand each other on the pitch. And when I got the ball, I thought get to the ball and cut it back. And obviously when I saw it got to him, I thought, yeah, he's definitely putting this in, because he's held the defender off and just smashed it in. So I enjoy playing with him.
And then your first goal, I'm sure we're going to see Patrick using his favourite hashtag.
Yeah. Just seeing that, it makes me not want to score at times. But yeah, man. But we clearly have a good understanding. Him left back, me on the wing. And as soon as he gets down the line, he knows there's a cutback. Like I'm literally always there. So yeah, I know exactly what he's going to do, and yeah, it works out.
His second goal was a great finish, but just in the build-up play, how important is James MacArthur to this team?
You already know how massive he is. To be honest, before, Maka used to just be the player that righted about that. His energy was ridiculous, but now I feel like he added a lot more to his game, the composure, the quality, and yeah, you can see on the pitch, like, from the hard work he's done.
And you're delighted with that finish? I mean, you celebrated like it was a Premier League goal.
Very delighted, because obviously I'm like, this season I'm trying to score a lot more goals, and I'm just happy that it's like all the hard work I've put in is showing on the pitch, really.
And finally, just how prepared do you feel? Like, if there was a Premier League game this week, do you feel like you'd be match fit and ready?
Yeah, I try to always stay ready, man. So if there's a game tomorrow, I'll make sure I'm ready.
Cool. Thanks, Wilf. Charo, it was a really entertaining game today. What was it like to play in that first half?
Yeah, I think it was an entertaining game today. First half, we were searching for the right moment to score a goal. We had a few chances. They had a few counter attacks, but yeah, if you see second half, we found the right person who was free, and yeah, I think it was a nice game to watch.
And for you, this pre-season so far, you played quite a lot of minutes. Obviously, came off at half-time today, but before that, away in Sweden and in the other game, you've had a central role in midfield. Have you been enjoying that?
Yeah, of course. I always want to play, and yeah, this pre-season I made a lot of minutes, and I'm happy with that. So I just want to show the gaffer what I can.
And defensive midfield as well. Obviously, when you're at Ajax, you played central defence, but it's a different style of play there, isn't it? So you're kind of more of a defensive midfielder there.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But I think the defensive midfielder position suits me well, so hopefully I can play more minutes on that position.
It feels quite a well-organised pre-season, this, with the amount of minutes everyone's getting. Are you happy? Do you feel prepared?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I think the team feels good as well. I think we played a few good games. I think the fitness is good, so yeah, I'm very happy.
And you're enjoying that baggy shirt that you've been wearing? What's the story behind that?
The story about that, yeah, as you can see, this year we have the tight fit, and yeah, I prefer to have a normal fit to play the game. So I asked Danny if he can bring a normal fit shirt. So that's why it's so baggy this year.
So now to move on to the final game of our pre-season, and like I said at the beginning, there were other games here and there, you know, a few midweek games and a few youth team games as well, which included the under-23s, but like I said at the beginning, I'm not really going to include them, mainly because most of the players in the under-23, bar maybe 2 or 3, probably won't feature at all in the team this season, in the first team, so I'm not really going to include them in sort of my overview of the pre-season game. And also because it included players who didn't play on the Saturday in the first team, they played on that game, I'm mainly just going to concentrate on the main first team and the main players who are obviously going to feature this season, because ultimately what we learn from pre-season is obviously how the season ahead's going to be and how it's, you know, the players are going to perform. So actually I'd much rather look specifically at the players who are most likely going to start the season and how they're performing, and how obviously that might correlate to the season ahead. So our final game was obviously at Selhurst Park. You know, last few seasons Palace have always had a game at Selhurst Park to end pre-season, and this one, once again, another good win for Palace, a 4-1 win against the French side Toulouse. So just to go through the lineup, you know, Hennessy was meant to start the game but got injured in the warm-up, so Gaeta started the game and obviously didn't do terribly bad, but I'll go on to talk about that. Obviously, the back four was Wan-Bissaka, Tompkins, Sanano. In midfield, Townsend, Milivojevic, MacArthur, Slup, Zaha and Benteke up front. So as I was saying with the previous games, in terms of, you know, this was building up for the new season, the formation was taking shape, and basically, bar a few players being swapped around, that's realistically what we'll see this season. And obviously the game against Toulouse here was exactly that. I personally think this, whether Hennessy is injured or not, if he isn't injured, he'll probably start. If he is injured, then Gaeta will start. But basically for me, I think, because a few of our new signings are not necessarily 100% fit yet, I think that lineup will probably be the one we'll go into the season with. You know, I think our back four is pretty solid. You know, Wan-Bissaka, Tompkins, Saka, Vanano, they've all been fantastic this pre-season. Vanano obviously scoring loads of goals, and especially Wan-Bissaka has just been, with his slide tackling, he's been outstanding there. In terms of midfield, like I've said already, Milivojevic probably comes in. Personally for me, I thought Riedebold might get a chance in the side, but given our few new signings, Chiarte, Max Meyer, as well as the fact that MacArthur is also doing well, as well as Milivojevic doing well from the World Cup and coming back, it's obviously lots of competition in the midfield, very hard for him to get in there. So Milivojevic, MacArthur, I think, as sort of the sitting players in the middle of the field, I can totally see that how we're going to go forth in the season. Obviously Townsend and Slup playing out wide. Ultimately, when we had Cabaye, MacArthur would play out wide, but because MacArthur's now come more central, it means Jeffrey Slup now gets a chance, and I actually think his partnership with Van Aanholt and Wilf on that left hand side is very strong, and is certainly in this pre-season, Slup has been one of the players who's impressed me quite a lot. And of course up front, Zaha Benteke. We all know what to expect from these two up front. But I must say, in this game in particular, I talked about it earlier on, but we did see quite a lot of changes. So originally it was a 4-4-2, but occasionally it did change to a 4-3-3, which once again just shows how the formation can change slightly. So at times it was Benteke striker, Zaha, Townsend out wide, and then the midfield three of Milivojevic, MacArthur and Slup sort of just tucking in behind. But then most of the time it was a 4-4-2. So once again just showing how free-flowing the system is. The fact that we can change from one style of play with two out-and-out strikers to having one where Wilf would drift slightly more wider and Townsend would obviously go wider as well. And we sort of play that 4-3-3 formation. So once again just showing sort of how fluid that formation is. Now of course there were loads of goals in that first 45 minutes. Obviously Toulouse scored first, and I believe it was Michy Batshuayi's brother Aaron who obviously scored for Toulouse quite early on in the game. And I looked on Twitter because obviously I was on holiday, and a few people were sort of looking at the game going, oh, here we go again, we've conceded first, it's not good, literally the weekend before the season starts. But actually got the early lead, but then after that Palace grew into the game, and obviously the quality and the sort of domination did start to shine through. Obviously Christian Benteke getting a goal, a great cross into the box and a great powerful header down into the goal. Obviously once again Jeffrey Slup, he's been good this pre-season as I've already mentioned, but he picked up the ball on the edge of the box, a few 1-2s with a few players, obviously got into the area, spam past the defender, shot that into the far corner. Once again a great goal. And of course Milivojevic, Townsend was brought down in the box after a good ball from, I believe it was Townsend went down in the box after a good ball from Christian Benteke. That's the way round it was. And of course Milivojevic, we know how good he is at penalties, narrowed that in into the far corner, obviously to give Palace the third goal before half time, put us in total control. And after that sort of lacklustre start to the game, by about half an hour gone, we were taking complete domination of the game. So overall I do think the first half was very good, and the fact that we were able to come back, not let our heads drop, albeit in a pre-season game, but the fact that we were able just to carry on, just keep grinding till eventually we got back into the game is of course great to see as well. Obviously late in the half Wilfried Zaha added the fourth goal to make it 4-1 and basically just end the pre-season on a high. And if you look at pre-season as a whole, obviously Wilfried Zaha made it 19 goals in 5 pre-season games. So when you're looking at that realistically, you're looking at almost 4 goals a game on average. So once again that just shows the quality we've got going forward, but also obviously the quality we've got in terms of having players who can score goals all across the field. Like I've said already, we've got defenders who can score goals. Mamadou Sakho Tompkins have got goals this pre-season. We've got fullbacks who can score goals, with Van Aanholt getting a few goals here and there. We've got obviously wingers and midfielders who can score goals. Milivojevic getting a goal, obviously Jeffrey Slup getting goals, and of course Benteke, Sorloth and Zaha also getting goals as well. So it's just showing that actually the goals, even though we scored 19 goals, they haven't just come from one player and they've been spread out along the team, which is of course great to see and shows that overall as a team everyone's giving their sort of bit of contribution. And of course, one of the better things or the best things about winning 4-1, gives you that confidence, and obviously because we've been unbeaten in pre-season, that's given us even more confidence, and hopefully we can use this confidence, not be too overconfident, but use it to go into the game against Fulham on Saturday. Go in with loads of confidence, not too overconfident, but just go in there and put in decent performance. And when you consider how many players Fulham have signed, it's going to take them a few days or weeks to sort of gel together and play well together. So hopefully for Palace, with us having this tightly knit group of players who've played so well through pre-season, plus a few extra signings who have come in, hopefully that along with the confidence will help us through this season. But once again, just to go through the goals, first one, great header from Benteke. The second one, great 1-2s on that left-hand side, and obviously Sluck gets the ball in the box, spins past the defender, fires into the bottom corner. Obviously the third goal, just before half-time, Luka Milivojevic scored from the penalty spot after Townsend was taken down. Bottom left corner, the penalty went into, and obviously Christian Benteke was the sort of guy who architected that move in terms of getting that ball and spraying it to Townsend. And of course, nice bit of footwork from Zaha to finish it off for our fourth goal. So overall, a really positive result from Palace. You know, you don't always know with these foreign teams whether they're going to be they're going to be sort of a surprise package and you're not sure of their quality, or whether they're actually going to be really good and it's going to be a really competitive game. Obviously for us, maybe it's not as competitive as you would have liked, but like I've said already, the whole point of our pre-season is the fact that the games got harder and harder. So realistically, the fact that this was 4-1, you could argue, yes, Toulouse probably should have done better and probably should have at least not let in as many goals, or probably should have scored more. But ultimately, you've got to look at the thing as a whole and say, actually, it was a pretty good challenge. You know, we didn't keep a clean sheet because they scored first. They were a little bit challenging in the first 20 minutes or so. So, of course, you've got to say the fact that we were able to overcome their confidence from scoring that early goal, and the fact that we were able to overcome their sort of control and dominance in that first period as well, is of course great to see as well. And like I said, it's pre-season, you know, it doesn't always mean anything, and I could be just talking absolute nonsense in terms of us playing well, and we might go on and not do well at the beginning of the season. But what you've got to look at is actually this pre-season is being very organised. The teams have been getting better and better. The team's fitness looks really good. The team seems to be playing really well. The morale seems to be good. So hopefully we can sort of translate that obviously into the first game against Fulham, and obviously the games after that. But what I'm going to do now, you know, I'm going to give you the final player and obviously a manager interview now with Christian Benteke, the goal scorer, and Roy Hodgson.
4-1 win today. Great to be back at Selhurst.
Yeah, I'm really happy. It was a long time since we played our last game here, and we had a good afternoon, which is good. And yeah, we all look forward for next week.
You scored today and had a big part to play in the other goals. How good do you feel ahead of the new season?
Yeah, I know how big the pre-season is, and especially for myself, because I want to be injury-free this season, sorry. And yeah, I got myself mentally and physically ready.
There's been a lot of goals scored this pre-season by a lot of different players. Is that something the team has worked on?
Yeah, also because we got a lot of abilities in this team. A lot of players can score from free kick, from headers, and yeah, that doesn't even surprise me because we got a good group.
And next week the Premier League starts, and a first tough game against newly promoted Fulham.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big game for the both team, and I think they will look to show them fans that they are back, and they will look to win this game, but we'll look also to win that game. So it's gonna be a big game.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Roy, a great 4-1 win. Was it good to be back at Selhurst?
Yeah, obviously it was nice. The pitch is very, very good. I thought the crowd was good. I thought that was a big crowd for a pre-season friendly. This, with the weather as hot as it is as well, so we were very pleased about that. And after a poor start, you know, we didn't start the game well, but I thought midway through the first half, especially after we scored the goal, we really started to play well, and in the end it turned out to be quite a comfortable victory. So it's a nice way to finish our pre-season, but we're not kidding ourselves. We know there are much tougher tests to come, much more difficult games to come. But it's always nice to have a pre-season where you've won games rather than lost them.
And as you said, unbeaten all through the first team games this pre-season. And there's been lots of goals scored by lots of different players. Is that something that's really promising going into the new campaign?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, as yet we haven't really played a team that's put us under serious pressure. So there's been lots of goal chances, and the goals we've scored have been a fair reflection on the number of chances we've created. It's not as if we've taken every chance we've created. There's, you know, for our 4 goals today, it could have been 10, and the same against Reading. But it is nice to see people on the score sheet, and in particular I'm pleased to see the forwards on the score sheet. You know, we had Alex Sherlock on the score sheet, we've had Christian now on the score sheet, Wilf of course is scoring goals. So all the players that you hope are going to be chipping in and scoring goals for you, they're doing so. So I'm happy about that.
And next week the Premier League starts, and back to one of your former clubs in Fulham. It's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, well, every Premiership game, we've got 38 tough games, and the moment we start kidding ourselves, it's not going to be that way. That will be a major mistake. In particular, playing a team like Fulham, who've been out of the league for 4 years and now come back again to the place where I believe they belong. That's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. It's going to be a really big occasion, and we'll be put to a severe test that day. So I'm just hoping that the good stuff that we've experienced in this pre-season will stay with us, and that we'll find the extra edge to our game that we may need to compete with a Premiership opponent as opposed to the opponents we've met so far.
Thanks, Roy.
My pleasure.
So now obviously you've heard the interview with Roy Hodgson, just giving his overall view of the Toulouse game, but in particular pre-season as a whole, and you know how he thinks everything's going. I'm just going to give you a few sort of viewpoints and my views of the pre-season so far, which obviously, like I've already mentioned, I think is quite successful and hopefully will put us in good stead for the season ahead. But like I said, you know, that Roy Hodgson interview was quite insightful in the fact that he just gave us our views overall. But like I've said, you know, do listen to all of the player interviews, because it does show you obviously their views of the pre-season and how their fitness is, but also how they think the team is progressing as the pre-season goes on. So definitely, if you did skip past them, I would go back and listen to all of the player and manager interviews, because they are very insightful. But just to go through a few points from pre-season, and I've probably mentioned a few of these already, but just want to sort of highlight them even more. Obviously, like I've said, got gradually better, not only the teams in terms of quality, but Palace's performances and the goals we scored were getting better as pre-season goes on. Obviously, that's probably going to happen anyway, because as you go on, your fitness is going to get better. But I do think, and I did see that actually the further we went on in pre-season, the system started to develop and the way we were playing started to take shape. So as I can say, you know, it gradually got better and there was a gradual improvement, which is good. And of course, that puts us into good stead for the new season ahead. Now, of course, much like every pre-season, it's always nice to see a few players get, you know, some game time. Soli Kaikai in particular, I was quite impressed with. Same with Alexander Sorloth and maybe Jeffrey Slupp as well. Now, these are three players who sort of fringe players, not necessarily going to be in the first team squad. Well, if you look at last season, they weren't always in the first team squad. But these are three players who've impressed me quite a lot. You know, Soli Kaikai with his attacking play, crossing, and obviously the goals he scored. Alexander Sorloth scored a few goals and seems to be getting better as pre-season went on, and certainly did seem to form a partnership with Wilfried Zaha up front. And of course Jeffrey Slupp as well. He's now added a few goals to his game, as well as just being solid, whether he is playing in midfield or out wide. He seems to be able to do both positions, seems quite adaptable, and seems to be playing really well. But it's obviously great to see these players doing well, as well as a few youth players like Nia Kirby. And it's great to see that actually when they're alongside the first team regulars, you know, likes of Townsend, Zaha, MacArthur, Van Aanholt, Sacco, Tompkins, Wan-Bissaka, you know, these are players who started quite a lot last season. The fact that fringe players can actually come in with these guys, play with them, is obviously great to see as well. Now, obviously Wan-Bissaka, I put him in there. You know, you could argue that he's one of these players who is great to see how well he's doing, because he's just come into the squad. But I think because he's played so well now, he's like one of the first names on the team sheet. So I think we've got to include him in that sort of first team regulars bracket now, purely based on how well he's playing, but also the fact that he's probably one of our first, well, he's definitely our first choice right back, but the fact that he plays really well. So Wan-Bissaka, you know, it's got to be credit to him, the fact that I and many other fans do sort of class him in that first team regulars bracket. Now, my third bullet point is the fact that the system looks good, the free-flowing football is good on the eye, good to see, and of course in terms of the way we're playing, we're scoring goals, we're looking solid defensively. So of course this free-flowing football is great, but also it's reaping the results in the fact that we're looking good going forward as well as back defensively. My fourth one is the fact that we've got goals coming from all over the team, all over the place, and I've mentioned this quite a lot in the podcast already, but I personally don't just like to see one player scoring all the goals. And you know, people say we're too reliant on Wilfried Zaha, but what this pre-season has shown to me personally is, yes, Wilfried Zaha got quite a lot of goals, but also we've got other players like the likes of Van Aanholt, the likes of Townsend, the fact that he can assist players, the likes of Sorloth. You know, we've got players who can contribute goals, as well as Soli Kaikai now. So it's great to see that we've got goals not coming just from one player in particular, or one or two players, but also the fact that we've got them coming all over the field shows that the whole team are contributing, but also the fact that we can't just rely, and we won't just rely on one player in particular. Now, I put Townsend in that bracket as well, is because I think he got 6 or 7 assists in pre-season, which just goes to show how good he's been in pre-season. And although he may not have scored a goal in pre-season, he's had a few shots which have been saved by the goalkeeper, a few just over the bar. So if they had been a few inches lower, they probably would have gone in and he would have scored a few goals as well. But obviously, like I've said, good to see goals coming from all over the pitch. But there's also in particular, yes, we're scoring loads of goals, but someone in particular like Andros Townsend is the guy who's sort of architecting it with the amount of assists he's done. Like I've said, we've played 5 pre-season friendlies and he's got 6 or 7 assists, which just shows that yes, we're scoring loads of goals, but also we've got to give credit to him for the fact that he's assisting them. And my final really bullet point is just we're looking good for the new season. So the system's looking good, the fitnesses, the players are looking good, and certainly with the few new signings we've got, the likes of Kouyaté, Max Meyer, as well as Andre Ayew. These are players who are going to bring more depth to our squad, and hopefully once they get their fitness back up and they sort of embed into the system, hopefully there'll be a really good season ahead. But like I've said already, it's looking good for the new season. Obviously pre-season doesn't always mean anything and it doesn't guarantee anything for the new season ahead, but at the moment it's looking good, and I think Palace fans can be quite positive for the season ahead. But just to go through my predicted lineup for the game, the start of the season against Fulham, and this is most likely going to be before our new signings are fully fit, likes of Kouyaté, Max Meyer. Before these guys get fit, this is what I expect the lineup to be, and of course a few of these things may change once these players are fully fit. But basically, not including the transfers, I think that Hennessy will start in goal. We'll keep with our back 4 of Wan-Bissaka, Tompkins, Sakho and Van Aanholt. In midfield, I think it's going to be pretty similar to what we had against Toulouse. Townsend, MacArthur, Milivojevic and Slup, and obviously Benteke and Zaha up front. So it's quite a simple lineup. I think most people can probably guess that. But based on pre-season and based on the fact that not all of our transfers are fully fit yet, I fully expect us to start the season with the formation like this. And maybe as the season goes on, maybe someone like Slup may come out, and maybe Max Meyer might come in and play that Loftus-Cheek role, or maybe someone like MacArthur might drop to the bench, giving us a good bench option, and maybe someone like Kouyaté or Max Meyer goes into that role to replace what Kabay used to do. And of course someone like Andre Ayew can replace the Sakho role, coming off the bench and just giving us that attacking threat. So once again, it's looking good for the new season. We've finally got a little bit of squad depth, and like I said already, the system looks good, the fitness looks good, so hopefully there is a good season ahead. But overall, hopefully, fingers crossed, a good season is ahead for Palace. So there you have it. Now you've heard my opinions on pre-season, what the players thought and what this can tell us about the season ahead. That concludes this week's podcast. But make sure to come back next week for my post-match review of the game against Fulham. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.